Let's start. What is open data? Open data available on the web is the idea that when government, and I mean municipal level all the way to the federal level or European level, when governments are taking our tax money and are building schools and paving roads or prisons, whatever there's, or defense, as a side product of building those schools and paving those roads, they're also producing a lot of data. And that data belongs to us, the taxpayers. We've already paid for it. First, the main idea is that those data that the governments produce as a side product should be basically be released again to the people in order to enhance economic activity, increase business lines, for businesses to mix their closed data, proprietary data with some of this open data and produce new business line and so on and so forth. And basically the first one who came up with an open data portal was under President Obama during his first term. And the exact date when the first open data portal in the world went on was the 21st of May, 2009. At first, the first 4 years, it was voluntary. And over the next couple of years, and to this day, it became like an avalanche. Everybody now is expected to have an open data portal and release data, cities, districts, countries, federal unions, and so on and so forth, is increasing. What are the challenges? First, discovery. Everyone is basically posting their data in a certain way, and so you need some consistent way, some way through which you can discover the data, make sense out of it. The second problem is classification. Classification, in my mind, is the hardest problem. The next one, of course, and I'll show some solution, is use. Okay, so we discovered it on the web, we made it consistent, we improved the classification, so we have better metadata, but how are we going to actually use it? So I will show you, my research is on. So here is an example how we might want the data to come back to us. Assume, for example, I really like Niranjan's point of view that we talked yesterday, that basically you begin at the end. You begin with the actual use case, and you work your way backwards how to build the technology. So here is, I'm doing just that. I want to tell a story through metadata about my open data item that says in what kind of profitable, business-oriented games this data could participate. I do not expect the person who uploaded to do it. I must provide an additional service to improve his metadata and make it become easily discoverable to clients like us. So how do I do that in my lab? What is the idea? And here is a place also to tell you, United States, there are 2,000 intelligence organizations, and often they produce duplicate reports because they don't know what the other one is doing. So how can we improve information sharing? And I had a certain model about economic incentive. I was working on that problem. At the end, I decided to dare, and I applied for a very large, not large financially, but very prestigious competition that is called Google Faculty Research Award. And they sponsor every year the brightest computer scientists in the world with the craziest idea, things that even Google doesn't know if it wants to do even. And so that year, I won that. It's a very tough competition. I won, and I'm not even a computer scientist. That year, in 2014, I was the only social scientist in the world to actually win that prize. And Google basically said to me, thank you. Google basically said to me, okay, smart guy, go build your system, what you have in the book, but you can't cheat. You cannot invent data. You want to show us how different agencies share information, so use real government data. But I had no, how do I get government data in Hindi, in Spanish, in Chinese, Mandarin, right? How do I get it? So there was one good thing. There was open data already, right? I told you, it started in 2000. This is the fundamental idea behind my project. What if I treat data sets that I find on the web as if they were people, and I let data sets teach other data sets what they are about? I give them a helping hand. I do not do the work for them. I do not get humans involved. It has to be inside my box, inside my application. Data sets and different techniques will help each other. And the other thing that I relied on is, my assumption is, having worked also as a practitioner in this field for 25 years, the problem, for me, how to create a test data. And by accident, I created the world's first catalog of open data everywhere in every language. How did I do that? So the approach is this. This is very high level. First, my software goes and discovers open data portals. A portal could be like data.gov.in for India, the national portal of open data for India. Then the next thing that my crawlers do, and my crawlers basically specialize in this item called open data. Basically, I keep track of the initial metadata. But for me, the initial metadata that waste management guy in Delhi released is just initial clues. I do not treat it as real metadata. I treat it as a clue what the data might really be about. That's the main idea. The next thing that I do, basically, all the processes that you know better than me, which do the ETL and the enterprise data warehouse, and I'm creating my corpus. And then at the bottom, you can see smart tagging algorithm. MECA stands for metadata extraction and classification algorithm, which is the brain of my product, of my academic research. And the way MECA works is after I've done the initial indexing, I would pull out one item, and then basically I start using different techniques. Some of them are more technique. If somebody's using my web, he's not voting, but the fact that he got a right result is already voting, that this data set matched his search string, right? And some of them might be in database affinity, to see that the metadata of two different databases, one published in Swahili in Kenya, one published in Germany in Hamburg, they are close enough. Maybe I can borrow some keywords from that one to the other one. And basically, there's a bunch of different techniques. If you want in your questions later on, none of them is new computer science. All of it is well established, just concatenated, glued together in an interesting way. So I do all of that, and my prize at the end is basically that I get new keywords. And I do some more sophisticated. Basically, then I decorate my data sets, and I give access to this data set through an interface for the world to discover. And of course, like Google, it's self-enhancing. The more you use it, the better I become. Because I can see, for example, in one of my techniques that you're happy with the result that you got, and so on and so forth. What came out from this project? Some interesting things that I totally didn't expect. There were two patents. One patent was about the crawling, because I crawl, when you crawl for open data sets, it's different than when you crawl for an HTML page. And the second one was about the smart tagging. Basically, a patent about what I just described at a very high level. There was the book that basically I described. That was the foundation of all of it. Before I jump to show you the two other interesting things, I would say this. I hope you will find them to be interesting lessons. Lessons from a guy who's been working for all his life with open big data, and might be useful to your project. The first one, data everywhere. In 2000, a couple of years ago, Google called me, and I went to present in Mountain View my project. That was the American Space Agency. Has he left my project? And at the end of my talk, a really nice guy, I can say his name, Jason, came to me and said, "Happy to meet you. I am the open data officer for NASA. I do open data. I publish." Now, remember, NASA lives on open data, even before open data was invented. And he said, we have this new thing. It's not new thing, it's the fifth time. It's called space apps. It's a hackathon. 10,000 developers all around the world in more than 100 cities participate, and we give them challenges. And they solve the challenge and forget prizes and fame. We would like you to be the first Israeli scientist to invent a challenge for us, to write a challenge for us. And then he said to me, "And I want you to use NASA's data. Do the challenge with NASA's data." And I said, "That's correct. I cannot use NASA's data from your open data portal, but Tasmania republished NASA data. The state of Oregon republished NASA's data. I will do for you exactly what you asked me. A challenge about NASA's data, but I'll get the NASA's data from other places. Data everywhere." And the challenge was so successful that year, the team that won from all of them won by solving my challenge, a very clever solution. And they told me later on, Jason told me, they took it to Congress the next year to justify a budget increase. To look what people are doing with our data. So that's the NASA story. About your clients, if people have politics, their data has politics. There is no such thing as data without politics. Wherever people exist, there's politics. Because there's politics, the data has politics. It's imprinted into the data. Move to the data, it's all neutral. You're wrong. Your project will not succeed. Understand how the organization you're working for, how its politics are embedded in their data, even in the description of the data, and your project will be more successful. And with that, I will say to you, thank you the way big data guys say thank you with Google's Ngram. The increased use of the word thank you in all the books of the world since the year 1800. Thank you very much.